Welcome back to another round Basis Picks. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, and any and all in between. I do appreciate it. Listen, this could be a very long episode. There are a lot of interesting fights on this weekend, and there were also 4 pretty big main events. I can't cover all of them. I think it's I don't want to take up too much of the viewing time. So what I will do, I'm going to put this into segments. This first part is going to be more so an honorable mention to some of the fighters that's going to be on mainly I think the Matchroom and Boxer cards. Then I'm just going to do main event. Then when we get to the PBC card, I think I'll do a couple of the undercard fights on that one, and then obviously end that with the main event. So before anything, Maisie Rose Courtney, shout out to her. She's taking on what's her name? Surname's Benile. Can't remember the first name, but she's the person that Shannon Ryan just fought in her last fight. So looking forward to Maisie Rose Courtney's fight. Shannon Ryan, I'm looking forward to her fight with Xenia Jerniak, first southpaw for her. I saw her doing some southpaw training, or at least it looked like she stayed in southpaw stance longer than I've seen her at the media workout. So I'd be interested to see if that does anything for her in the ring, if that's something she's looking at. I'm expecting a good performance from Jimmy Sains and George Liddard. Rhiannon Dixon and Katarina Thanders I think would be a really good fight as well. To be honest, that whole entire card is levels, and I'm expecting a good performance from Ellie Scotney against Lara Griffer and Chev Clark against Vasyl Duka. So yeah, all in all, again, not really going to go through much of that. On the Boxer card, you got Callum Simpson, I think is facing, what's the guy's name? Matteo, I think his name's Matteo Marcia or Marcia, something like that. I think he's a last minute replacement from Jermaine Brown, who was supposed to be fighting. So that should be an interesting go around. Jamie TKV, he's on the card as well. I can't remember the name of the guy he's fighting, but he's a Brazilian guy. I think it's 11-1 at the moment. 11 wins, 11 KOs. And obviously Jamie TKV's 5 wins, 3 KOs. So that's going to be an interesting one as well. And for the vacant English title at cruiserweight, Vidal Riley against Nathan Quarles. So I'm expecting that to also be a very fun fight, especially in the first couple rounds. And I'm most definitely expecting Vidal Riley to get the business done for that one. That's all I can really think of off the top of my head. But yeah, so shout out to all of those special mentions. Everyone that I made comment of there, I do expect to kind of get the job done. So with that being said, let's move on to the main events of all of the UK time zone cards. Okay, so the first one I'm going to talk about is Caroline Dubois against Magali Rodriguez. Now, interestingly enough, Rodriguez is a lady that has gone up and down the weights. I think she's fought as high as 137, I think might be her highest weight, but I know that she's also been as low as I think super bantamweight, so 122. So she's kind of got that range. Now, one thing about her, she's got some excellent level changes and she's very quick. She's a very similar height to Caroline. I think she might actually be the quicker of the two. Caroline is most definitely the more powerful and the more complete and put together, but Magali Rodriguez has again, she's got very quick feet, good movement. She can fight off the move as well. So she can throw the shot as she's moving both front and back. She has good combination punching as well. The only thing that I would be concerned about is the fact that sometimes she gets greedy So because of that, she definitely can be timed in between shots if the person isn't tucking up. But again, because she does have quite good level changes and you know, good movement, especially on the inside, sometimes she can get away from the returning fire if she sees it quick enough. Caroline Dubois, as I said, we know that she is she is the complete package in terms of she's got speed, she's got technique, she's got poise, she's controlled, she's got good combination punching, she's a devastating body puncher, and she's heavy-handed. She's got the, you know, extreme torque and rotation on almost all of her shots. She really does you know, squat down, dig her toes into the ground and drive all of her power into most shots that she throws, and she can do it at a sustained pace as well, so she doesn't often tire easy. So all of that makes for a great fight between the two of them. Magali Rodriguez, she's Mexican. I think she's Mexican national as well. She's got an engine on her, gas tank, won't run out, so they definitely will be going hell for leather for all of the 10 rounds. Now, I expect Caroline to win this fight and win it quite comfortably, just off of its skills and experience in sort of, I guess, against different types of styles compared to Magali. But this is by no means going to be an easy night's work for Caroline. I think this might be similar in difficulty. Actually, I think it will be a little more difficult than the fight she had at York Hall back in June when it was sweltering. I wouldn't be surprised if she doesn't get all the rounds her own way, and I would be even more surprised if she actually got the stoppage in this bout. That's not to say that she can't, but Magali is a tough operator who's been in there with a lot of top level and top quality opponents in those lower weight classes. So I think she will be able to do enough to see the final bell, and I think she will push Caroline probably harder as a pro than she's been pushed currently. But if we're talking about honest scorecards, I can see it being a 97, 93 type situation. I do think she will cause Caroline some problems, but knowing, you know, Caroline and her trajectory, if this will probably be one of the few people that if she was to get an 100 to 90 scorecard, I probably wouldn't moan about it as much as I have with some other people. But yeah, the prediction is Caroline Dubois to win via points, via quite comfortable, not dominant but comfortable performance. Okay, now moving over to Turkey real quick. A lot of people I think have forgotten about Murat Gassiev versus Otto Wallin. Now Gassiev, I believe, is 6'2", 6'3". He's, the last time he was in the ring, I think he was weighing about 236 pounds, 204, maybe up to 240. That might not be the case, and if he is weighing in and around the 240s, that's probably not the right type of weight for someone like him, even though he is literally like a, you know, feet planted, just dig the shots in. Now you've got Otto Wallin, who's about 6'5". He runs about sort of 246. He's a good mover, not the strongest of punches, but he's technically sound, very technically put together. Has a lot of obviously amateur experience, as well as coming from sort of the gyms in New York. So, you know, he'll be well drilled in sort of those, you know, those New York styles. Now, the last time we saw Murat Gassiev with a southpaw was the Mike Balogan fight, in which he knocked Balogan out in the second round. Time before that, he got schooled by Alexander Usyk. So you never quite know what you're gonna get with Murat Gassiev. It all depends on how he turns up. Now, Otto Wallin is gonna be very good from the outside, especially at the start of the fight. He'll be picking Gassiev off, angling out to the side, stopping certain projections coming in and sort of narrowing the trajectory and just being able to sort of stay out of range up top. But I think the body's going to be there to be hit, and I do think that Gassiev is going to target the body, especially in the first few rounds. The issue I have with Otto Wallin at the moment is he hasn't really had to go any pace on any of his recent fights, and a lot of his fights have actually been looking rather pedestrian. Now maybe that's because he hasn't had a good opponent in front of him, but this time he definitely does. But sometimes when that is the case and you're not able to get up for certain opponents, you start to form bad habits, and ultimately when those bad habits come in, they're hard to get rid of. I do think in this scenario Otto's going to start extremely well and probably frustrate Gassiev for the first half of the fight, but I feel like he's going to get hit with a couple of body shots that just start to slow his legs down a little bit, and he's not going to be able to maintain the concentration to see it through all the way to the last round. Gassiev is an extremely tough guy. He's got an extremely thick neck, so you know that he can absorb a punch or two, and I think while he's not a pressure fighter, I think he's going to employ more of a pressuring tactic to try and get close to Otto Wallin and not let as many punches go until he is either close to in range or has Wallin up against the ropes. And I do think he will pound to the body and tire Otto out, sort of take the legs away from him. And then when the body goes, the head follows. I feel like he will catch Wallin with some devastating work up top. And I do predict that he will get the victory in this fight. And I don't know if it's a 12 rounder at this point. If it's a 10 rounder, Otto may be able to see it out. But if it's a 12, then I'm predicting a late stoppage around the 10th or the 11th round. But to be honest, even if it's a 10 rounder, I'm still predicting a stoppage in the last third. I just think that Gassiev hits too hard and is not going to be deterred by much that Otto Wallin does. So my official prediction is a late stoppage for Murat Gassiev. Okay, last but not least for this first segment, you've got IBF and Ring Magazine Cruiserweight champion Jai Opetaia taking on Jordan Thompson. Now, I had the pleasure of speaking to both of these guys yesterday. I try not to get personal when it comes to predictions and analysts. I try not to get too involved around the fighters as well, because I don't like my takes to be compromised by liking someone's personality or disliking their personality a lot of the time. But part of the course is what happens when you do interact in and around a lot of these people. That being said, both of them were great guys. I had a really good conversation with Jordan Thompson. You will see that soon on the Undefeated podcast channel, so make sure you tune in when that does come out. Hopefully it comes out before the fight. There's been some issues with the footage, but yeah, we'll see how that one goes. That being said, look, my personal feelings aside, let's look at the characteristics. So Jai Opetaia is about 6'2", maybe 6'2.5". I'm not sure if he's quite at 6'3" level. You've got Jordan Thompson, who's about 6'6", 6'7" at this point in time. He's a huge guy with a very long wingspan. And prior to this fight, initially my thoughts would have been, well, Thompson, he ain't fought no one to prepare him for this kind of level. This is 2 steps ahead of where he needs to be, and this is like a step too far too soon. Then when I sort of pared it back and had to think about it, I looked and said, well, Jai Opetaia, his record before the Braiders fight wasn't anything special. Now, obviously, I don't know a lot of the people from the Australian market and whatnot, but I do know that there wasn't even anyone there who had like a good win-loss record for the most part, apart from maybe a couple of debutantes here and there. So then you say to yourself, well, their level of competition before that fight wasn't that dissimilar. So why would I be writing off Jordan Thompson so quickly? But then you say to yourself, well, okay, that was then, but he still had the Braiders fight. That Braiders fight shows you who you are in that moment. And in that moment, we realized this is a guy that battled back from the 3rd round with 1 break in his jaw, to them battling for the last 4 rounds of that fight with a second break. Literally, his head is moving to the left and his jaw is moving to the right. But he managed to battle, he managed to, you know, batten down the hatches. He was swallowing blood at that point, but he was still in there, still competitive. You know, even in some cases, you could say he was still winning some of those rounds with a double broken jaw. So you know that if it comes down to a crisis, he's got those minerals. Do we know the same about Jordan Thompson? He had the mini crisis against Vasyl Duka in their 10th round, where he did get dropped right in the last second. So luckily, obviously, he got to his feet and then the bell ended. But he was in control all the way before then. Kind of switched off, and upon switching off, got caught. Is that a habit? Is that a trait? Or was that just a one-off? In the Luke Watkins fight, while he won that fairly comfortably in the 6th round, I didn't like the amount of punches he took in that fight. Sitting in the pocket with someone he didn't need to sit in the pocket with. And he wasn't like riding shots. He was actually getting caught quite clean with a lot of those. And the worry is, you do that with someone like Jai Opetaia, he's not gonna let those opportunities go by the wayside. So when I'm looking at it, I see Jordan Thompson's best chance to win this fight is in the first 5 rounds. Jai Opetaia hasn't been in the ring for about 15 months. We don't truly know how his jaw is. He told me it's better than it was before. And he said, look, I've been hit in sparring. I've had several training camps. I've had loads of partners. Like, I know that it's fine, and I know that I can go the rounds. But he doesn't truly know that under the bright lights, because he hasn't been under them in 15 months. So that's where I feel Jordan needs to step on the gas. He needs to basically go hell for leather in the first half of the fight. And even if he hasn't gotten Opetaia out of there, if you can win those first 4 or 5 rounds convincingly, maybe you'll holster him a bit. And then that means that you can not coast, because you can never coast in a world title fight, but maybe it just means that you don't have to then try and go hell for leather. He's now got to go hell for leather to make sure he wins the next 5, the next 6, the next 7, which could open up some opportunities for you to get your work off. The problem is, Jai Opetaia's got a very good boxing brain. He's good at making adjustments in the ring, and we know he can take a shot. He's also southpaw, which is something that Thompson hasn't had much dealings with thus far in his career. So with him being so much taller, and obviously there's a lot of body for Opetaia to aim for, just being a naturally smaller guy, more time, he's already quick. He's definitely the quicker of the two, especially over a short distance. Jordan's got to keep his defense immaculate. Every time he shoots that jab out, he can't pour and have his hand drop before it comes back to his face. Everything has got to be tight. The front hand, backhand. He can't afford to sit in the pocket, especially with a style which is in the opposite direction to the way he would normally be throwing the punches. Ultimately, I think he's gonna have a very good first third. So like the first 4 rounds, I feel like he's gonna come through that quite well, and it will be like a 2-2, maybe even a 3-1 to him, just via activity and sharpness. But I feel after that, Opetaia's still gonna be in there. He's gonna start to find his range, and he's gonna start to front foot pressure Jordan into reacting. And I feel if he starts reacting, the gas tank starts to wear out a little bit and the concentration starts to go. I've seen lapses in concentration, so since I've seen it before, I have to assume it can rear its head again, especially in such a high pressure situation. Jordan's extremely confident for this fight, with good reason, but so is Jai, and Jai has the amateur pedigree that Jordan doesn't have. He's also been in there with a level of competition Jordan can't even dream of at this point in time. So all of that, I feel, puts it in Opetaia's favor. And I do feel like from round 5, 6, 7, he's gonna start to slowly break Jordan Thompson down. Round 9 is gonna be a mini crisis, probably comes through that. And then in the 10th round, I feel like Jordan's gonna put in his last stand, go hell for leather, basically, be willing to just go out on his shield. And I think he's gonna do enough and acquit himself well in that 10th round, but then by the 11th there's not going to be much left. And I feel like in the 11th round, Jai Opetaia gets that stoppage victory. I don't know if it's going to be like a multiple knockdown situation, the ref waves it off, or it's just, like one of those shots that you don't see coming and then the ref jumps in to save Jordan. But I do see it being a very late stoppage, rounds 10 to round 11. And I do see Jai Opetaia maintaining his IBF championship status and his Ring Magazine #1 status as well. Okay, first half done. Now it's time for PBC, Canelo and Charlo. Now this PBC card is stacked. Usually they might have like a good main event in name, but the undercard is very trash, especially on the pay-per-view shows as such. But on the last couple, I need to give them their props. They've had some really, really good fights. And this one is probably, I believe, the best card of the year overall. That's barring none. So that's PBC, that's Top Rank, Matchroom, Boxer, Queensbury, all of them. I feel like this top to bottom is the best card. Now, it would have been better if it was Furman versus Ugas, but we'll touch on that in a little while. Elijah Garcia, I'm looking forward to seeing what he does on the card. I know there's so many others on the undercard, like Frank Sanchez is there, Terrell Gachet, there's a lot, but Elijah Garcia, I believe, is kicking off the main broadcast section. I don't know much about his opponent, but from what I have heard, he's quite tough, and this will be like it's a showcase, but it's a step up at the same time. So just to see how good Elijah Garcia really is. That notwithstanding though, we look at Jesus Ramos against Erickson Lubin. Now this fight, to me, I don't know if this is the co-main or the third from top, but this fight is, it's a pick'em. But it's one of those ones where Ramos 22 at the moment, Lubin's 27. Lubin has taken a lot of damage in his career. He's always in fights. He's a very good fighter, technically very well skilled, very well drilled, but the problem always seems to come with him. He hasn't got a poor chin, but I feel like it will let him down at the most crucial time in a fight, and it's happened on several occasions with Jermell Charlo. It happened with Sebastian Fundora, although in that fight you saw the heart that Lubin had. I mean, his face was battered and bruised, but he kept coming forward, and he even got to Fundora and showed people, I guess, the blueprint on how to beat him. So maybe Brian Mendoza could thank him for for showing that blueprint. But overall, like, if you look at Jesus Ramos, he's at his age, he's been in there with a much better level of competition than when Lubin was at the same time. So when Lubin said, look, I wasn't ready for a 27-year-old when I was 23 in Jermell Charlo, I don't think he's ready for me at the same age. But his level of competition has been better than Lubin's was at that time. Now, Lubin's got the experience and he's got the craft, so this is not going to be an easy fight for Ramos, but Ramos is consistent. Everything he does, like his pace remains the same. It never really dips. He holds power in both hands. He is a banger, but he's also technically put together. All of this leads me to believe that this fight goes fairly late. I'm predicting around about round 8 though. I think that Ramos is gonna start getting to Lubin, especially sort of from round 4 or 5 onwards, and I feel like he's gonna start catching Lubin with some shots that he just ultimately doesn't stand up to in the long run. So I'm predicting about around 8 stoppage for Jesus Ramos in this one. Then we've got Yordenis Ugas versus Mario Barrios. Okay, so this one, Ugas has all the natural advantages here. He's a naturally bigger guy. He's the accomplished Olympian, the accomplished amateur. He's former world champ. Like, he's got a lot going for him, except he's been majorly inactive since, when was it, April last year, when he faced Errol Spence Jr. He had a broken eye socket, broken orbital bone. We all know, Kell Brooks told you, other people told you, as soon as one goes, the other one becomes susceptible to damage straight after. And with the inactivity and the fact that he's 35 going on 36 at this point in time, Mario Barrios is the younger guy, very strong, very well put together as well. Does well behind the jab, and can use his height and reach to his advantage in this fight. I think Ugas might have slowed down a little bit, especially since that Spence fight. And even though he's got the experience, I think this fight goes the distance. And I'm not sure if he would do enough on the cards to warrant it, especially considering that there's no upside in him at this point, apart from potentially maybe feeding him to, like a Keith Thurman or something like that. But Keith's already fought Mario Barrios, so it wouldn't necessarily be for that. But there's more life in Barrios. There's more upside. He comes from the right geographical location, you guys know what I'm talking about. So with all of that, I think the Barrios will work steady in this fight, and I do think he will do enough ultimately to win, and I think he will win a points decision. I think it would be a disputed one, maybe a split or a majority, but I do see Mario Barrios actually taking this fight, so we'll kind of see if I am right with that. But now, time for the main event. Okay, Canelo Alvarez versus Jermell Charlo. Undisputed versus undisputed, at least until the bell rings, and then that WBO 154 belt is gone, and Tim Tszyu becomes the new WBO super welterweight light middleweight champ. A lot of people have been speaking about Charlo's chances in this, saying, look, size is not really a problem in here. He's he cuts a lot more weight than Canelo does, but he's not necessarily the smaller man. He's probably the bigger guy. Well, look, ultimately, Canelo is used to facing bigger men in the ring. Every single person he's faced, I think, except maybe Amir Khan, was the bigger guy than him in the ring. And I think even Khan is technically taller. So with all of that, you've got someone that's used to taking shots from 160 pounders, 168 pounders, 175 pounders in the ring in 8-ounce gloves, as opposed to someone who's used to taking 154 punches. Charlo, throughout this entire moment, he's obviously said that he's been nervous, which you're supposed to be nervous. This is the biggest fight of your career. Like, nerves are supposed to, they can either be a motivator or they can be a hindrance. But for him, the way he's been speaking, I feel like they're a hindrance. He's been talking about how it's been hard to build himself into a 168 fighter, and it's been hard to work with a 168 frame, and he doesn't feel that, like, the training's a lot different. He's not as explosive as he's supposed to be, and etc. There's a lot of excuses to me that are coming from him, and all of the excuses kind of tell me that in his mind he already knows that he's lost, but he's trying to rationalize it for the next challenge. At the face-off, at the press conference, he was visibly nervous at both the one before and the one after. Like, no one can tell me that his hand shaking the way it was shaking isn't nervous energy. Like adrenaline, when your adrenaline is pumping, there's two things that happen. You either get properly switched on and alert to everything, or you get that nervous adrenaline where like your body just goes into involuntary shakes that you can't shake off. That happens to me sometimes when I'm watching certain fights, especially if I'm invested in a certain person, usually if I've got money on the line. So I know what that feeling is, and you try and control it, but you can't control it in that moment. You have to work through it. And ultimately, that's what I've seen. I've seen nothing but that from Jamel. He hasn't been fiery. Canelo and himself were very cordial in the opening press conference. In the second one, all of a sudden, though, Canelo's starting to talk. He didn't think I was a good fighter. He didn't believe in my skills. I need to show him that the skills are real. And all of a sudden, it's almost like Jamel felt there was this unwritten rule that we're just going to be cool and, you know, we'll be calm and whatever. But Canelo's like, no. Like, I'll respect you, but your head's still coming off your shoulders on Saturday. That's the energy that Canelo's giving. Jamel's not giving that to me. Now, if we look at what they do in the ring, you've got Canelo Alvarez, who has almost become a pressure fighter. He used to be very much a boxer puncher, but now he's more of a pressuring boxer puncher. He will come forward, you know, behind the high guard, just to sort of keep in range, make you think he's in range so that you throw your shots so he can open up and get the counters off. So he's very much a front foot counter puncher in this stanza. You've got Jamel Charlo, who's also a boxer puncher, but is not really a good mover. He doesn't move around as such. He likes to sort of stay in small circles and sort of stick to the mid-range and try and keep level with his opponent, usually feeling he gets the most of his power through his, you know, his shorter shots, his shorter hooks as opposed to his straights. He does have a tendency to, when he does throw the straight, try to almost angle out at the same time, but throwing himself forward, you know, over the front foot, which can obviously leave you vulnerable to a counter if you're not quick enough to get out of the pocket. His best bet is to almost become a pure boxer move against Canelo, and every time Canelo rests, he fights, and every time Canelo wants to engage, you back off and move around, frustrate him, especially in the sort of the first half of the fight, when you know that hopefully you should have the extra gas in the tank. But the problem is, Jamel doesn't know what he's going to be like at 168. That's an extra stone of competition that he's not used to. Now, yeah, he might normally balloon to 168 when after the, you know, sort of after he's done his ring walks and everything, but now he'll be ballooning up to like 180, 185. What's he gonna be like with that added weight on him? How's his gas tank gonna hold up? If he's expecting to just throw power shots, he's not gonna wobble Canelo, not with the, you know, with the defense that Canelo employs, not unless he sets those up. But the way you set those up, you use more energy. I think all of that's gonna be in his head. Ultimately, I don't give him a huge chance, but this is a shot at victory which he has. There's no downside for Jamel Charlo, no matter what happens, whether he gets brutally knocked out in the first round, whether he goes the distance. He's always got a fail safe, and he's got belts somewhere else that he can go and you know, finish his legacy with, or even parlay into moving up to 160 and challenging for titles there. Canelo, for him at the moment, this is for him to prove to people that whatever slippage they believe he's had is not as pronounced as, you know, they thought it was. So I think he's got the bit between his teeth. He's obviously had surgery on his hand, so, you know, the hand's firing on all cylinders right now. And I think just due to the level of disrespect he got from the Charlos previously, not in this build up, but previously, he's going to remember that. And I feel like this is going to be Billy Joe Saunders part 2. I think he's going to be quite spiteful and quite vicious in there. And I am expecting Jamel Charlo to see the canvas in the 7th. and I don't think this fight goes past the 8th. So inside 8 rounds is the prediction. 7th round is sort of where I see it happening, but doesn't go past the 8th in my opinion. Leave your comments down below. If you've watched the entire video, thank you for rocking with me. It has been a long one. I said it would be. It's a big weekend. Leave all yours down below. Let me know what you think. Like, subscribe and share as always. But for right now, that's Basis Picks locked.